Hey everybody, I am Brad Gilmore from the Schmodown Rundown, and I'm the author of Back from the Future, Celebration of the Greatest Time Travel Story Ever Told. Here with the man himself, West Coast Frank Janish.
Great sound.
Frank, how are you?
I'm doing good.
It's a phenomenal sound. It's a phenomenal sound because it's a sound that talks about the excitement, talks about it elicits the emotion of joy, of triumph, of winning. It's a great sound. And to me, it exhibits all the things that I think of when I think of the Chicago Bulls from the 1990s. We've been talking about The Last Dance on our show, the Schmodown Rundown. We started talked about it a little bit more off that show, just you and I. You're a former Chicago resident, similar to that of Barack Hussein Obama, the 44th president of the United States.
Many things we have in common.
Both former Chicago residents.
Yes. Yeah.
You have same haircut as well.
Yeah,
But it's true.
we have the same guy. Yeah.
But we were talking about episodes 3 and episodes 4. Yeah, pretty much identical. Do you have that sly Easter suit that he had? Don't cause controversy now. We were talking about episodes 3 and episodes 4 of The Last Dance, which is the documentary series on the last season of the Chicago Bulls, the 98 Bulls. So let's see, 3 and 4 was really about Dennis Rodman, and then about Phil Jackson to a large extent was episode 4, with some of the Michael stuff in there. Also, the Bad Boy Pistons rivalry, and when Michael and the Bulls finally got past the Bad Boy Pistons. What was your reaction to episodes 3 and 4?
I mean, I loved the first 2 episodes, obviously, and I love these 2 episodes where you get into the Dennis Rodman story, and it morphs into the Bad Boys again, going from 98 back to 89, 90, going back and kind of filling in some of those moments, those pieces of history, those time in history in terms of where Rodman came from, and then how he morphed into the Dennis Rodman that was on the Bulls, and then how Phil Jackson played into that, because you're right, it got into kind of his path into the NBA, going down to, was it Puerto Rico or somewhere like that, I forget, and coaching those games, and then developing kind of a philosophy with Tex Winter and getting the triangle offense and all that. So it was great to see again the storytelling that they're doing, and it wasn't so much heavy on Michael at first, but then it got into that, and so it's just a lot of fun to go back and relive kind of that time, because I was still a pretty young kid in grade school, and I knew everything that Rodman was doing for the most part. I do remember, just how when he came over to the Bulls, the antics that he was bringing with from San Antonio, and I was like, well, this guy's kind of crazy, and the Bulls aren't crazy. That's like my grade school mindset. So I was like, I don't know how it was going to work, but then, Chicago really just warmed up to Dennis Rodman, so much so that I was telling you this last week, on the Kennedy Expressway, on the side there was a building, and it had murals of Chicago athletes, and one of them on there was obviously Michael Jordan, but then there was also one of Dennis Rodman, and his head was near the top of his head was near the top of the building, and what the building had done was every time Rodman would change his hair color, it was like another piece, like a billboard piece above his head with his hair color, so they would change the hair color as Rodman changed his hair color. And so much so I found an article about how it was kind of backing up traffic on the Kennedy, and it was this whole kind of circus with this building and the mural. It was a really fun time to be a Bulls fan back then, obviously with Michael Jordan, but then you bring in Dennis Rodman, and the circus that came with that was just a ton of fun. And my Lord, I really thought.
But let me ask you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I want to ask, Dennis coming in to the Bulls as a Bulls fan, knowing the battles that the Bulls had with those Bad Boy Pistons, was it kind of like, when Hall and Nash showed up in WCW, or when Eric Bischoff came over to WWE? When it was like, wait a minute, what is this guy doing here?
Yeah.
We battled you. You're not one of us. You're the enemy.
So with that, I knew that Rodman had come from Detroit. Now, I wasn't really too familiar on the history between the Pistons and the Bulls, but I did know growing up in Chicago that Detroit was this other city we just didn't like much, in the same way, we have some animosity towards New York or New York towards us, whatever it is. So it was kind of, and I have family in
Houston
Michigan
and
too.
Dallas. Yeah.
Right. That kind of thing. So, and I have family in Michigan who are Detroit Tiger fans, Red Wing fans, Piston fans, Detroit Lions fans. So all of that, and plus when you mix in all the other sports and it's Detroit, as a kid, I knew that I just did not like Detroit. So, but him coming over, I was more wrapped up as a kid, more wrapped up in his antics rather that he came from Detroit and everything that the Bulls had gone through in their first three-peat, or to start their first three-peat. I wasn't really too familiar about that as a kid, but as I got older and I learned about all that, and the way they describe it in the doc is just, they just had, the only way the Pistons were going to handle the Bulls or Michael Jordan at that time was to beat the crap out of him, and it's just fascinating to see how that the game of basketball is played then and how it's played today.
I thought it was funny to me to see Dennis Rodman in the episode, and I listened to Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo. They did like a recap of these episodes, and they both said that Dennis Rodman was uninteresting. They said this is the most uninteresting player in the history of the NBA or something to that effect. Like, why do we need to spend a whole time on this documentary about Dennis Rodman? And Ryan Russillo said something to the effect of, oh, yeah, so he changed his hair color. We got to get him on Barbara Walters. But I don't agree with that assessment, because Dennis Rodman, although some of his antics were definitely a character and it was definitely a personality, I don't know, it was authentic to himself, but he even said, Madonna told him, you got to turn this up. Like, you got to go. You got to run with this. And that's why Dennis Rodman, he transcended basketball. I mean, as a kid, in the 90s, I was very young. I mean, very young I was. Like, during this time, I was like 7 years old or something like that. But I still knew who Dennis Rodman was. He transcended the game. And whether it be the wearing the wedding dress and dressing in drag, or whether it be the different color hair when I played NBA jams, I always wanted to play with the Bulls, not because of Michael Jordan, because the guy on the N64 had the different color hair. That's who I wanted to play with.
Right.
So I don't agree with the fact that he's uninteresting. And when you know his story, his dad's name is Philander, which is hilarious.
Yes.
And he has like 24 or more children. And I know Dennis grew up on the streets for a while. At one point, he was living with a young kid and his family, and they were a Caucasian family. And he was living with them for a while, and then he found basketball, and he became the greatest rebounder of all time. So I didn't find him uninteresting at all. If anything, the doc made me change my mind about Dennis. I always kind of looked at him like, ugh, Dennis Rodman, like, he's a little over the top. But this one made me go, man, Dennis Rodman was pretty cool.
Yeah, and to say that Dennis Rodman was uninteresting, this is the guy that dated Madonna and Carmen Electra. You're telling me that guy's not interesting? You're telling me that guy? Come on. I mean, and the guy who took a 48-hour bender and then elongated that even longer away from the team, that guy's not interesting. Like,
no,
like
come on,
the guy
wait.
that
like that Vegas story. You're not interesting, but you leave in the middle of a championship season working on a three-peat to go to Vegas for several days, and the guy who comes to find you happens to be named Michael Jeffrey Jordan, and he knocks on your hotel room door, and Carmen Electra answers it, probably scantily clad, might I add. That's an interesting guy. That is an interesting man. I want to know more
That's
about
pretty interesting
that
to
guy.
me. Yeah. You could make
crazy.
a documentary on the time he took that time away from the Bulls. When he went to Vegas for the 48 hours, you can make that a documentary and line that up with when he came back to Chicago but didn't report back to the team. That's when Jordan had to go to his apartment in downtown Chicago to go pull him into practice. I want to see that documentary, even just a 60-minute documentary, because that has got to be insane, like crazy.
It's nuts. And during this time too was when Dennis was doing a lot of stuff with WCW and was doing the wrestling thing. He was a member of the NWO.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I think that it's either during the series or with the Jazz, either during the series or right after it happened, after Game 7,
Right
something
after.
like that on that Monday. Dennis gets out of a limousine with Hulk Hogan and the rest of the NWO and walks out at the United Center in Chicago with Michael Buffer announcing him to the ring, and the camera followed them from the backstage through the entrance all the way to the ring, and he's smoking a cigar. That is an interesting human being, and he and Karl Malone, who battle each other in the finals, go and they actually have a wrestling match against each other. It's just, this is one of the greatest men of all time. The Worm, Dennis Rodman.
That guy's not interesting at all.
Macho
I don't
Man
want
Randy
anything
Savage. No, don't want anything more about him.
Yeah, not an
wanna
interesting guy at all.
I want to know about the Bad Boy Pistons. I want to talk about them a little bit. What was what's the Chicago? Oh, go ahead.
Just one quick thing about Dennis Rodman that I found really interesting about Dennis Rodman was that little supercut they did of him explaining rebounding and learning the different, how the ball caroms and things like that, just based on this or that and the other. That supercut was infinitely interesting to me and just showed you the mind that he had for basketball and rebounding specifically.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was like, I saw like a bunch of memes though of me trying to explain my mom how to work the Fire TV. Okay, boom, you click it here, boom, it comes back that way. Then you got to go this way, boom, I'm over here. Click that way, boom, bow.
A lot of memes
so
are
that
coming
was
out
fun.
of this thing. So,
oh well, my favorite one is this one right here. Let me pull it up because I actually had to save it on my phone because it was so phenomenal. Let's see. I don't know if you can hear this. Let me try. I'm gonna put.
Well, I know it's all
No,
bullshit.
you can't hear it. I can't. For some reason, it's not playing. But it was Michael Jordan talking about talking. I don't know why you're not able to hear it, but it was Michael Jordan talking about.
Well, I know it's all bullshit.
It doesn't matter. It was Michael Jordan talking about Isaiah Thomas whenever they show him the little iPad, and he's like, "This is what Isaiah Thomas said about walking off the court." Michael Jordan goes,
yeah.
I'll look at it. It's all BS anyway. he didn't want any part of it.
Ugh.
Well, I know it's all
that...
bullshit.
Yeah,
did you hear it? Okay, you did hear it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
One more time for the folks at home.
That
Well, I
part
know
of
it's all bullshit.
sure.
So good.
That's why I'm glad ESPN was like, we'll show it at this time so we don't have to bleep anything, because you really want to hear it's simple to bleep stuff, sure, but it's like you really want to feel what they're saying and without any kind of impediment on bleeping words or whatnot. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Michael though,
but I would say
has been. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Frank.
No, I was going to say this whole handshake thing has gotten way bigger in the sports news cycle than I thought it was going to get, because it's been talked about all week long, and I get it to a certain degree why it's happening, because there's really nothing else much to talk about. But I think also it just kind of blew up this topic into a stratosphere that I didn't think it really needs to be, but it's still interesting nonetheless to talk about, because we're talking about feelings that are 30 something years old, and it's or almost 30 years old. So, man, it's very interesting to hear Isaiah Thomas speak, Bill Laimbeer speak on it after we've heard it in the doc from like Pip and Jordan. So, I don't know if you saw any of those clips from Isaiah and Laimbeer this week.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot about him. And the thing is, you can't go back and rewrite it. You were wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, oh my God, who said it in the documentary? Was it Horace Grant? Who was just like, he called him the B word. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
So good.
Yeah.
And to me, that's fine. No, but to me, that's how they came across. You know what I mean? That's how they came across. They did not come across as sportsmen, because if you shake hands, I remember being in Little League, and we lost every game that season. And it sucked at the end of every game, but we had to go shake hands and say good game with the other team. It's just what you do to show, hey, no hard feelings. You're a sportsman. We're sportsmen. We're going to keep it moving. And for them to walk off after getting swept, I mean, swept, that's just it just doesn't show good character to me, especially because they whooped up on the Bulls for so many years. The fact that they finally got what was coming to them and they can't reciprocate the same thing. Michael, he even showed him. He's like, I went over to every one of them when they beat us. I told every one of them good game, shook their hands. I took the loss like a man. They didn't. And I so for a lot of this, I'm either reliving it or living it for the first time, or I've heard about it, but I haven't really watched a lot about it. And to me, I've always heard about the no handshake game. I didn't really know more than, hey, the Pistons didn't shake the Bulls' hands after they got swept. So that was interesting to learn about overall. Yeah. And I think that the real MVP of this docuseries has been Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan has been so great in everything that they've asked him about. He's been honest. He hasn't stopped it. And I hear this criticism of, I thought this was going to be a tell-all. And I don't think it's a tell-all. They haven't even talked about Michael's gambling. They haven't talked about it. And I'm like, well, okay, I don't care. To me, similar to the book that I wrote, my book about Back to the Future wasn't meant to be a tell-all book. My book about Back to the Future was meant to be a celebration, right? And I think that that's what this documentary is in large part. Of course, they go down the beaten path. They talk about Scotty, they talk about Michael, they talk about Dennis, they talk about this. And I'm sure we're going to get more about Michael's gambling habits or whatnot. But this is about a celebration of the greatest basketball team in the history of the NBA during their last season altogether. And I think it's meant to be a celebration of this is what they went through. And this is why we still talk about the most popular. They are the most popular sports team of all time. Of all time. They are the most popular sports team of all time. And I think it's more of a celebration than it is supposed to be. Oh, let's know all the dirt. I want to know the dirt about Michael. Why did he go to play baseball? Yeah. Why did he do it? What's the conspiracy? You know, I who cares? I just want to see Air Jordan. I've been so hyped up about this documentary. I went and bought some Jordan 1s. You know what I mean? I went and bought them.
It's great.
I did. The Chicago color Jordan 1s. I had to do it color. Right.
Mm-hmm. Like black and red?
Yeah. They're like the OG colorway. Yeah, the OG colorway.
Yeah,
the Jordan 1s. So I'm all in. I can't wait for episodes 4 and 5. Or 5 and 6.
Yeah. This thing about it not being a tell-all and all of that stuff is it's not going to be that at all. It was never going to be if you know anything about Michael Jordan. Like, he has a lot of say, almost complete say, it sounds like, over what's coming out in this documentary. And it's taken forever to get this footage out there, this documentary out there, because ESPN was sitting on a treasure trove of footage for years since they taped this, and the only reason they were able to get this access was because it was okay by Jordan, and they said, we'll even give you like kind of, you know, the rights of what to do with it ultimately, something along those lines. So people have gone to him at ESPN and saying, hey, you know, we got this idea, and most people didn't even get to sit in front of Jordan to give them their pitch. Eventually, obviously, it did happen. We're getting this documentary. So to think you're going to see something about the gambling stuff, I don't think so. I don't think you're really going to see anything about it in this, if only because Jordan has pretty much, it sounds like, ultimate say. And and you're right. It's more about a celebration and what they had to go through. And it's not about what happened in between the three-peats. It's about what they had to go through to earn at least, you know, the last championship, if anything. And then they tell you, you know, the first three-peat, and they pepper that stuff in there. So to think, the baseball stuff will probably come up here and there, but not in any meaningful. It's not gonna soak up an entire episode, I don't think.
Yeah, and I don't really care. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see them play in the championship seasons. I don't really. The gambling stuff has always been a part of Michael Jordan's, you know, lore, if you will. Like, if you're a Michael fan, you've always heard about the gambling stuff. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really bother me. Like I don't care enough about it to want to see it, a whole episode on it. You know, I if you want to mention it here and there, that's fine. If you want to talk about how competitive he was, or how he would lose millions of dollars in a game of golf, like, that's fine. I think that's a fun story, and I think it adds to his legacy and his competitiveness and the legend of Michael Jordan. But I mean, the people who are complaining that, like, we're not getting everything.
Yeah. The thing that I can never wrap my head around this particular topic is, so people are saying that he got suspended from the NBA because of the gambling stuff or what have you.
Yeah, that's a conspiracy.
They were so willing to sweep it under the rug so no one would find out, but we're still going to kick him out of or suspend him from the league. What kind of that doesn't make any sense. If it's not going to be public information, he's not really being punished or what have you. And why would David Stern, the NBA, forcibly remove the most popular player, athlete of all time at that time, and all time? Why would they send him away for a year and a half or whatever, just to make a point behind closed doors? That doesn't make any sense. So it's no secret that Jordan gambled a lot. You know, they were showing you him gambling on the plane, and he's playing with thousands of dollars then. Sure, he's probably gambling in Vegas with tens of thousands, maybe hundreds, I don't know. But who cares? So it's, I don't know. That's a whole other, I don't care, really.
Well, I can't wait to see what happens in episodes 5 and 6. We'll be back to talk about those, Frank Janish and I, in our Last Dance recaps. And I'm just gonna, to me, Frank, they could do 100 episodes. They could do 100 episodes of this show, and I'd watch every single one of them 3-4 times over. I hate that. A part of me liked that they were doing the 2 episodes like for the first week. Like, let's get you hooked. Let's do episodes 1, episodes 2. Let's go. I kind of wish they'd space them out because I don't want to run out of the content. But you know,
sure.
we'll see. We'll see episodes 5 and 6, and I'm excited to see where the series goes.
The episodes fly by so quick. It's like the first hour, I'm like, whoa, we're done? And I was like, thank God we have another one. So I'm kind of, I see what you're saying, but I'm glad we get 2 episodes because it's like, I need it, man. I need more.
I need more. We all need more. The Legend of Michael Jordan. Hopefully, the next time we do this, I'm gonna have those Jordan 1s on, and I think I'm gonna sleep in them. I think that I'm gonna wear them all the time because they're the most beautiful basketball shoe ever. And those Jordan 1s, those 85 OG highs, you know what I mean? The OG colorway. I've never been like a big sneaker guy, but so the first pair of tennis shoes I ever owned, tennis shoes. See, that's how Caucasian I am. The first pair of tennis shoes that I ever had. No, the first pair of sneakers I had, they were Jordan shoes. I bought them from my next door neighbor.
Wow, that was an ESPN update I heard.
It is an ESPN update. I'm sorry. I have my thing on.
Your phone's still plugged in? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry. Forgive me. But I bought a pair of Jordan shoes from my neighbor who had worn them, I don't know, a few times. They were black and white. I don't know what number they were, but they're black and white, and I bought them for $25. And I thought I was real styling when I went to Sidney Lanier Middle School the next day. But and then I had like another pair of like the 9s. I had a pair of the 9s, and then I fell out of the Jordan love, and then now I'm going Jordan 1s. Have you ever owned any Jordan shoes?
Going back, yep. No, I've actually not, but man, did my friends do. Did. So I went to, well, you got the Jordans. See, I didn't grow up with a lot of money, so my mom couldn't splurge on Jordans. But boy, my other friends did. So I was like, oh, that's nice. I like those. Okay, damn. Yeah, so.
See, I always liked them, but I stopped wearing them because when I went to high school, like all my friends were wearing Birkenstocks and Sperry's, and I thought that was what I was supposed to wear, even though I really loved basketball shoes and basketball in general. So I was like a poser wearing these Sperry's and stuff, and I realized that I like an Italian loafer. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big loafer aficionado, if you will. I even like a little chocolate boot. You know, I'm very fashionable, but I think that these Jordan 1s, they speak to my soul. They speak to my soul. So Frank Janish, let the people know where they can find you and follow you.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at FrankieJ29.
You can find me on all social media at Brad Gilmore. Check out Frank and I's other show. If you are a fan of the Movie Trivia Schmodown, if you've never seen it, go check out the Schmodown Rundown. That is on the Schmodown Entertainment Network. And if you've never seen the Movie Trivia Schmodown, I think that you'd like it. It's fun. It's competitive. It's a sport, so you'll get into it. But until the next dance, this is The Last Dance. Beyond The Last Dance with the boat and Frank Janish. We'll see you next week.